Welcome to the joy of coding.
Hello, and welcome to episode 42 of The Joy of Coding. My name is Mike Conley. It's episode 42. I should probably make some kind of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference. I hope you brought a towel. It's gonna be a heck of an episode. I'm really looking forward to it. We're gonna be hacking on Firefox. We're gonna be reviewing some patches. We're gonna be investigating some performance problems. It's gonna be a great episode. Let's check out the agenda. Here's my screen. And if you're wondering why things look a little different, I'm in a room where all the lights are off. And the reason I'm in a room with the lights off is because if I turn the lights on, it completely washes everything out and I get this blotch on my forehead where you can see through it, which is really odd. So I decided to opt for the lights out. It's almost like I'm phoning in from the basement. From the basement, the joy of coding. Let's take a look at the agenda. So today is January the 27th, and this agenda, if you're interested in following along, is available for you to click on links and stuff. If you go down below, if you're watching this on Air Mozilla, there's an additional links section, and you can click on the link to the agenda there, and it updates in real time. So like if I make any changes here, it'll sync, and then you just refresh your page, I think, and the changes should appear. But you can click on these links and follow along as I go about and do various things. And if you're watching this on YouTube or on my blog or something, the link should be somewhere around the video, probably in the description or in a caption somewhere. The link to the agenda will be nearby. Okay, so what are we going to be doing today? A reminder that no plan survives breakfast. We'll try and get through some of this today. I don't know if we'll get through all of it. We might get sidetracked. Who knows what'll happen? We'll just do our best. But the first thing I want to do is investigate or evaluate a patch that was posted in this bug where you can get into a case where two tabs look like they're selected at the same time. We were investigating it last week. And then what happened? I think we were investigating it last week. Is that what was on the agenda? I don't know if we got that far. Maybe we did, maybe we didn't. But there's a patch there that I want to take a look at to see if it fixes it. I want to continue the Better Know a Gecko on the async tab switcher. We got about halfway done, and I want to keep reading through to try and understand what's going on in the async tab switcher. And here's a link to the code that I'm examining if you're interested. And then I want to review another patch that came in this morning for, I believe it's a notification to users if E10S is disabled because they're using an accessibility API or some piece of software is attempting to interact with Firefox using accessibility API. So I'm going to be looking at that patch. And then finally, if we have time, we'll take a look at again, getting profile dumping working with E10S, which I've done a fair bit of cleaning up on. This is the sort of thing that I keep falling back on whenever there's not higher priority bugs to work on. So if you're wondering why it's been so long where we've been hacking on this, it's because it's like my fallback bug. And as we've been doing for the past couple of weeks, oh, Evil Pie likes my hair. Yeah, it's I guess it's kind of a faux hawk. Faux hawk, and I'm also rocking the, I call this the musketeer beard. I had a big beard for the past couple episodes, and I've been slowly like removing more and more of it. Earlier this week, I had what I call the Tony Stark. Well, I started with the William T. Riker, which was the full all-around mouth, and then I got the Tony Stark yesterday. Today it's the musketeer. Tomorrow I'm probably just gonna have the mustache, and then I think I'll be clean shaven by Friday. That's my plan. But glad you like the hair. And yeah, the faux hawk. I got a haircut. Okay, what are we doing here? Where was I? I want to get started. Oh, I wanted to mention that you can rate this episode. So there's a link here to a form where you can like let me know how I'm doing. Is this episode what you want to see? If you want to see more of some things, less of other things, give me feedback, and I can help tailor the joy of coding to my viewers. So let me know how I'm doing. You can click this. Well, you can use it right now although you don't have a lot of information to make an evaluation from. But if you choose to click this link at the end of the episode, that'd be great, and you can help me make this better. So let's get started at the very top with this bug, 1239533, where we can accidentally get two visually selected tabs. Oh, and I ended up duping it to another bug, and that's because this is the bug that has, it's an earlier bug which describes the same problem, but it has a patch, a proposed patch. So the bug itself, I'll try and demonstrate it. So the way that the bug filer designed this test case is I have to click on the white space here, and then I might see the bug. Yeah, see, I've got what appears to be two selected tabs, and that goes away if I like choose those tabs. Then it goes away. It's really weird. It doesn't look right. It does not look right at all. And so this bug is all about fixing that. And I believe it was last week that I sort of traced through the code looking for where the problem was, and I narrowed it down. If that, I don't remember if it was during the episode or not, but I outlined the problem here, where basically the visually selected state on the tab, which is what makes a tab look selected, was being updated in two places, and there was a race occurring because one of those places waits for the frame to be ready. It waits for the frame to be ready so that it doesn't look like the tab is selected before we can paint the content. And the other side, so that was one branch, and then the other branch was not waiting. It was immediately setting the visually selected tab. And so you had one visually selected, and then the other one would kick in, and that's why we had two. And so let's look at this patch. There's this proposed patch where, and I'd narrowed in on where those two branches were. I mean, one is in the async tab switcher, which we've been examining in the update display method, and that's called whenever we finally get a message from, or we finally realize that A, we've got a frame that we can display, we've got like layers and we can paint the content, or B, we haven't gotten a frame in enough time, so let's show the spinner, and then we show the selected tab. We set the selected tab. The other case is in, like the other branch is in move tab 2, and that's called whenever you end up opening up a tab such that it's opening up not at the end of the tab strip, but at somewhere after the tab that you've currently selected. And that occurs if you're clicking on a link that calls window.open or something, and that will open the tab right next to your current tab. And the way we do that is we like open the tab at the end of the tab strip and then move the tab. Don't ask me why that's the case, why we do it that way, but that is the way that it occurs. And after we move it, we set visually selected on it. Now I wonder if it's even necessary to move tab 2. I want to examine, I think move tab 2 is the one I want to examine closely and evaluate this patch for. So let's take a look at that. Actually, hang on. I'm gonna switch gears for a quick second. I know this is a little bit of context switching, but I've been trying to land this other patch to remove some like sync message stuff for Session Store, which is the thing that remembers the state of the browser. And I think I figured out the problem, and I want to push it to try. So I'm going to do that first. So let's see. I need to make sure that I run the tests that I think, the tests that were failing. And it looks like it was BC7 on Aurora. And yeah, BC7, Win Debug. Windows XP debug. Okay. So it's very frequent with my patch on Windows 8 and Windows XP debug on BC7. So let's choose, let's see, what's the backlog here? Windows, hey, we're doing okay here. I'll do a Windows XP machine because the test queue is shorter. And I'm going to do debug. And we're going to run, what was it? E10s? No, just standard Moki test BC7. I don't think I can select just a, I guess I'll have to run all Moki test BC, which is unfortunate. And then we're going to restrict the tests to Windows XP. So I don't want to do Windows 7. I don't want to waste any time there. So we've got Windows XP, debug, BC7, Moki test. That looks right, and that's my try syntax. So I'm going to push this to try now. I got this push to try extension that, if you're curious, you can get it yourself. It's on, like if you use mock mercurial setup, it's now offered push to try, which is very nice. And it will do the job of like creating the fake commit on top with your try chooser syntax and then popping that commit off. I used to use something called mercurial queues to do this. I'd create like an empty mercurial queue, I guess, patch, and then I'd put the try syntax in there, and then I'd pop it off. And this is doing that, but it's doing it for me, and it's doing it right. It's using the right way, and not using mercurial queues. Because if you're using mercurial queues, you probably shouldn't be. Alrighty. Also, if that depresses you, if you're using mercurial queues and you want to continue using mercurial queues, I believe something is coming from the mercurial people that will interest you. Hold on, I'm going to put this in my notes. So I had a note for this thing. Hey, I think I've figured this out. I think we need to clear out the data map before, after flushing the message queue. Okay, and there's my try. And then I'm going to say that this is blocked on try build. Yeah, there's this thing coming from the mercurial folk called, I think, mercurial topics. I filed some kind of bug. Queues. Yeah, mercurial queues like workflow. I filed this a way back. I was like, there are people here, important people, who like the workflow of mercurial queues, even though it's like destructive to your repository history. And GPS says Mercurial's feature replacement workflow for MQ is topics. And here's the topic plan. There's an HG topic experiment. So here's the plan. It might be worth checking out. I'm going to put this in the notes. If this is a thing that interests you, I'm going to put that in the agenda. I'm going to put it under links here. Well, no, that'll get copied out all the time. Mercurial queues, more like topics, and then I'm going to paste the link and unbold that because that's obnoxious. Okay, so back to what we were doing before with the selected tabs. I've got this build. It's got my fix on top of it, and I'm willing to work on top of that. So what I want to do is examine tab browser's move tab to method a bit more. I want to really understand what's going on here. Move tab to. Right. I also want to understand the history of move tab 2. It's possible that this visually selected stuff is just wrong, and I need to understand it. Whoops. I don't know. I think I had gone to Reddit as like a test page. Doesn't matter. Okay, so this is my build, and I'm pretty sure I can reproduce the issues. So let's try it. Make sure. I'm going to put it back here, and then we'll click on this. Yes, no problem. I can totally reproduce that issue. And it's ugly. It looks bad. It looks very bad. Okay, so move tab 2. Let's take a look at the history of move tab 2. I'm going to look inside tab browser. DXR is magic syntax that allows me to drill down into tab browser. Just playing a sound there. I thought you'd enjoy. We're going to take a look at the blame. on tab browser. Evil Pie does not believe me that I was surfing Reddit. R jokes for testing. I love the joke subreddit, and I was using it for testing. Maybe. Maybe. Glad you're watching, Evil Pie. That bolsters my confidence. Okay, so logically selected, and this was added by George during this commit, and then visually selected. So there's this single commit that added this stuff. So I'm going to explore that commit, see what's going on here. What we used to have was that... Oh, I see what he was doing. Visually selected equals true. Okay. So we have this notion that a tab can be logically selected and then visually selected. Logically selected means that the tab has been requested by the user. Like they have asked, I want to choose this tab. And so outside consumers say, okay, well that tab is now logically selected. But then there's the visually selected decoration to say, okay, you actually look selected. And I think I want to get rid of that stuff. That's kind of hackery because of the problems of async tab switching and making sure that content isn't flashy and we don't ever show like random video memory, and like we only switch the tab whenever the content is ready. But hopefully I can gut that stuff. I've got this plan. It's kind of an outline of a plan to like cache screenshots of each tab and synchronously switch tabs again. And that would get rid of some of this complexity. Okay, so that makes sense what he did. But I think the problem is that we only want, if like we're in the midst of a tab switch, then this can be wrong. This could be wrong. Yeah, so let's take a look at what the patch does now. Where did I put it? Okay, so the proposed patch, what it does is it looks to see if there's a switcher, and if so, it gets the visible tab. Okay. Otherwise, it uses mcurrent tab. Visually selected and logically selected is false. Okay. We invalidate the caches. And then we say whichever is the visually selected one. Sorry, we say whichever the visible tab is for the switcher. We set it to be logically selected. That, I think, makes a lot of sense. Because the async tab switcher has this notion of the visible tab, the one that we're actually showing is selected, and that can be that might not be the current tab, because the current tab is the one that's logically selected. The current tab is the one that's logically selected, and we want to only show the one that's we set the logically selected to false. Why do we even do this step? Because that's like every time you go through this list of tabs, it's going to do the work for us. We can probably simplify this. and get rid of this. Okay, let's try that. I'm going to clean up this patch a little bit. I don't know if it'll apply. I don't think this is actually a diff. No, not really. But I can kind of crib the technique. So what I'm thinking is I don't actually need this part anymore. And was focused. Selected tab. So what I can do is reuse some of this logic. Get rid of that. And then selected tab down here. Okay, I think that makes sense. Let's try it. Let's see what happens. Alright, here we go. So I'm gonna go back to that testing URL again. I can probably write I can write a regression test for this. Hey, that looks right. Although, I mean, like, we have to wait for the frame to paint. If this was here, I need to, like, have a better example. Close tabs to the right. And then add a couple tabs. And then I'm going to, like, modify things so it's like, oh, hi there. Okay. I think that's what I want to do. Did that not work? No, shoot. Oh, hi there. And then yeah, okay. Yeah, that looks more right. Like, yeah. It's not amazing, like, the performance is not amazing. But that's not bad. I think that's the right move. I don't see any errors in tab browser. Asynchronous separation was a selection changed on breadcrumbs on the inspector. Okay. And then I've got these like statuser got these errors from an extension I've got installed, but don't worry about it. Okay, so I feel pretty good about this fix. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at what we did. We should probably comment about what's going on in here. I think that's necessary. So we might be in the midst of an asynchronous tab switch. Which means that the logically selected tab might not be, wait, logically selected is true. What's m current tab gonna be? M current tab equals, that is called after, I see, update current browser. Tab 2. We might be in the midst of an asynchronous tab switch, which means that the logically selected tab, that m current tab, might not have been updated yet. Yeah, with the m current tab might not have been updated yet. Wait a second. Constructor, first child, current browser equals new browser, current tab, selected item. When does update current browser occur? Does update current browser occur? That's whenever you select a tab, we call update current browser. So you'd think that the current tab, the tab container selected item. Oh, we're going down the rabbit hole. Selected item. Tabs dot selected. Selected. The attribute is selected. Property selected. Visually selected versus logically selected. Hang on a second. I know we were so close to victory, but I really want to understand this, and I don't think I fully do yet. Visually selected. Selected. In E10S, we want to only pseudo-select a tab before its rendering is done so that the rest of the system knows the tab is selected. We don't want to update its visual status to select until after we receive confirmation that its content is painted. Okay. If we're not, and val has attribute setting selected. Okay. So maybe that's the solution. Maybe we've done it slightly wrong. Maybe what we should be doing instead of all this business. Yeah, I'm going to revert this, or I'm going to shelve this just in case, and revert what I got in here. So it's a shelve is like git stash. Current tab will be the logically selected tab. I think what we should be doing is setting selected. Because, yeah, I think that's the right idea. The visually selected tab isn't changing. Wait. Should update the visual selection as well at the same time, or if we're ETNS and the visually selected tab isn't changing, in which case the tab switch code won't run if we're not, or hmm. Huh. Maybe I'm wrong. If we're not in the midst of a tab switch, we're going to set selected, and then G multi-process browser will be true, and then the tab won't have this, so it won't have visually selected as that. But that's okay, because we probably... Oh, you know what? I think we're okay using this new technique. I want to test it though. The reason I think we're okay, let me see if I can formulate this into English, like, let me see if I can put this into words. There are two cases. You either are, well, and then for one of those cases, there's another two cases. So let's break it down. There are two cases. You're in E10S mode or non-E10S mode. If you're not in E10S mode, then G multi-process browser will be false. And so this will evaluate to true, and so anytime you change underscore selected, you'll actually set logically selected and visually selected. So that's working as proper. If we're in E10S mode, we're in two other cases. One, we're in the midst of a tab switch, and two, we're not. If we're in the midst of a tab switch, suppose we have a tab. Let's say let's do the one where we're not in a tab switch. We have a tab that's being moved. That tab is either selected or not selected. We say unselect all the tabs, and then select the one that's current. That's the current tab. But I don't know if that's going to work because logically selected will have been removed from all of them. Logically move tab 2. Current tab. Current tab equals this time current tab. And then we something like that. Let's just try that. Where are we at? Okay. So I've got some tabs. Right, and that works as expected. Now what if I move a non-selected tab? Browser move tab 2. And then what's the API? Tab and then index. So G browser tab 0 to 3. Okay. 2, 3. 2, 1. Move tab at 1, 2, 3. I feel pretty good about this solution. Now I want to make sure that I have this a suspicion. Now maybe it's unfounded though. I want to make sure I get this right. I don't want to embarrass myself. Well, there's nothing wrong with embarrassing yourself, but I want to make sure I get this right. Move tab 2. The reason I'm looking this up is I'm pretty sure we do this thing where we remove visually selected from everything. So then how do we know what mCurrent tab is? Because mCurrent tab, is, okay, mCurrent tab is set. It's not like dynamically checking to see what the selected item is. Okay, so we're okay. I don't need current tab. I can use just mCurrent tab. So that's good. I can simplify that a little bit. Okay. Let's take a look at what we've got. Current tab selected is true. Should probably write a good commit message explaining this. I think this is the right solution anyhow. I'll test it one more time with this most recent change, but I think this is the right solution. And I'll write a good commit message because, damn. What was it? Attachments to this thing. Alright. Works as I thought it would. Stat users complaining about things. Don't worry about it. Alright. Alright. So let's commit this. Commit. This was bug. Bug. What is it? Don't visually select remote tabs. Don't visually select remote tabs during move tab 2. I'll have Jared look at this. So this is where, okay, I'm going to write a better commit message here. We got into this case where we were updating, what do I want to say? If we're in the midst of an async tab switch, while calling move tab 2, we can get into a case where visually selected is set to true on 2 different tabs. What we want to do is remove the selection on each tab, and then want to do in move tab 2 is to remove the selection from all tabs and then just choose and then set it. Remind me again how this works. Selected. Right. What we want to do is remove the selection from all tabs. Remove logical selection. And then re-add logical selection to the tab to current tab. If we're in the midst of, and what about if this will not affect visual selection at all. Why do we even do that? Like, why do we even get rid of the selected? All right. This will not affect visual selection at all. Which is fine. If a tab, visual selection at all for selection to current tab, and visual selection as well if we're not running with E10S. If we're running with E10S, then the visual selection will not be changed, which is fine. It is fine since if we weren't in the midst of a tab switch, the previously visually selected tab should still be correct. And if we are in the midst of a tab switch, then the async tab switcher will set the visually selected tab once the tab switch has completed. All right. Maybe I should put that comment here, actually. Oh boy. No, not that. Not like this. Move tab 2, we can get this up, So move visual selection from all tabs and from all tabs, and then re-add logical selection to current tab. And visual selection off for not running with E10S, which setting selected will do automatically. If we're running with E10S, then the visual section would not be changed, which is fine, since we aren't in the midst of a tab switch. Then the previously visually selected tab should still be correct. And if we're in the midst of a tab switch, then the async tab switch has completed. Okay, I think that's right. I feel most confident. And I've added a comment, so commit amend again. And now I'm going to rebase this on top of FX team and push to review. Pull FX team, and then I just want to rebase the tip.
What happened?
All right. We got our changes here. We're gonna rebase onto tip. That dot just means the revision I'm currently on. That's Mercurial shorthand for that. And now I'm going to push to review. And I should probably comment. Thanks, tab mix. I'm going to thank the original author. I used your patch as a starting point to fix this. Very helpful. Let's take a look before I publish. I always like to make sure it looks non-idiotic before I publish. Okay, I think that looks okay. All right, publish it. Boom. Should make sure I have a note for this bug. It's possible to end up with two visually. I have a note from the previous one that I duped. It's possible to accidentally. I'm gonna rename note from to and now I will paste that in here and I will get the new URL. Boom. And someone's asking for something in IRC. Was there a redirect? I'm looking at one. Redirect review requests. Not right now, no. You have to ask the reviewee to re-push with a new commit message or to with the R set to someone else, or go into review summary and change the reviewer in the web UI. Jotes likes my mustache. Thank you, Jotes. A perfect mustache. Hang on a second. I've got like a lot of IRC back scroll. I'm just trying to. Okay. Oh, R. Yeah, like a pirate. Yar. Perhaps I'll do the rest of the episode talking like this. I don't know if that should be annoying. Probably.
Uh?
'Tis a pirate's life for me. You notice that they never say pirate. They say it, it's almost like there's an O before the I, like pirate. Pirate. Okay. So where are we in the agenda? We did this. We're going to continue. We're on this topic already with this async tab switcher stuff. We're going to continue with Better Know a Gecko. That's what that means. Better Know a Gecko. So let's continue off from where we were. Yeah, a faux hawk and a goatee and a pirate mustache. The thing is, next week I'm going to be clean shaven. And I don't know what I want to maybe I'll do something new. Maybe I'll wear face paint. Maybe I'll wear a funny hat. I keep saying I want to wear a funny hat. Maybe I'll bring in a funny hat. Okay, so let's go back to this async tab switchy stuff. I'm going to look at the code using the DXR link that I put in my notes. Let's keep going. Now, where were we? I remember we got through init. We got through probably finish and destroy. And if not, well, hang on. Where did we get to? I don't know if anyone remembers. We went and we described all of these things. We definitely did like the pre-actions and the post-actions. We talked about like the things that occur every time an event comes in. And I think we may have looked at... You know what? I don't think we looked at any of these event handlers, so we should look at that. We looked at request tab, definitely. And I think we looked at start tab switch. So what I'm going to do... What am I going to do? Where should I keep going from? So let's pretend we've already requested a tab. So someone has called request tab, and so we're in the midst of requesting, like a tab switch is in flight. So we have started a tab switch. We're in the state of starting a tab switch. The stopwatch is going for the tab switch. And sorry, I'm going to stop scrolling around in a second. I just want to re-familiarize myself with where everything is. Okay, all the logging stuff's down there. Okay, so we've started the tab switch, so the stopwatch is going. We set requested tab to the tab that we wanted, and then we get at the browser for the requested tab. So that's this thing. I know we overload the term browser a lot, so the browser in this case is the stuff that's showing you web content. You might also call it a renderer, but we call it a browser. And so we get at the browser and we transmute it and get like a reference to what's called its frame loader. And the frame loader is, I think there's a one-to-one relationship between a browser and a frame loader, and the frame loader will know some information. Like I think there's some E10S specific information on that frame loader. For example, we can know whether or not there's a tab parent. A tab parent is basically the actor in the parent process that can communicate with the, like, there's a sibling actor in the child process, the content process, and that's how we communicate between the parent, like the browser for the parent and the browser and the child. Like the rendering in the child is through the P browser interface, and that's implemented using tab parent and tab child. So we get at the tab parent. So think of tab parent as like our walkie-talkie to the actual rendering and logic going on in a particular browser tab. So tab parent's our walkie-talkie, and we ask whether or not we have. So we have this active suppressed display port thing, which I'm guessing is a set active suppressed display port. So what line am I on? 3482, display port, which is a set. And that set is to hold a list of tab parents in which we're actively suppressing the display port. Right, so suppressing the display port is, I think, a performance optimization where instead of having the content process render like layers that are outside of the size of the viewport, which can be expensive. It's good for APZ, like for the async scrolling and stuff that we do, but it's not great for tab switch performance, so we constrain it down to just the size of the content area, and I think we do that with suppress display port. And we're keeping track of all of the things that we want to suppress. And we say, yes, suppress the display port, and then we add it to this set. Okay. Then we do the pre-actions. Again, the pre-actions are like, let's look at them again. We're going to go through we're going to make sure that we've got a switcher and that we're the switcher. Then we're going to go through all the tabs and look at their state and get rid of any tab state where the tabs disappeared, maybe got closed. And then we're going to make sure that if the last visible tab's gone away, then we get rid of it, like maybe it closed before we could finish the switch. And if there's a spinner tab and we've closed the tab with the spinner, then we get rid of the spinner and we close out the spinner tab reference. And if there's a loading tab, and that's like basically the pre-actions are every time an event or something occurs, we check to see if any of the tabs that we've been tracking have disappeared or their browsers have disappeared. And if so, we stop tracking them. So we do the pre-actions, and then if we had an unload timer, we clear it and create a new one, an unload timer of unload delay. And how much is unload delay again? 300 milliseconds. So when the user hasn't switched tabs for this long, we unload layers for all tabs that aren't in use. And that way we keep the layers around in memory so that we can quickly switch between tabs, and then after 300 milliseconds we say drop them. I guess that's to optimize the case where you're like tab switching very quickly, maybe back and forth between tabs. Then we do the post actions after that. So we set up our timer, we do the post actions. We've already updated all the principal state variables. This function takes care of updating any auxiliary state. So we make sure that if we don't have a loading tab, or that the loading tab is in the loading state. We do a bunch of other assertions here. I think I explained this stuff last week, or the week before last week. So if you're interested in more detail in post actions, maybe watch episode 40. If we're not loading anything, try reloading the requested tab. If we don't have a load timer and the tab state of the requested tab is state unloaded, then we're going to load the requested tab. Okay, load requested tab. What is that again? We make sure that there's no load timer, and then the load timer I think is used to determine whether or not we show the spinner. Like after the load timer times out, we'll show the spinner. And then we set the loading tab to the requested tab, and we set the tab state for the requested tab to loading, and then we create our load timer. That's what load requested tab does. Are there any tabs that still have work to do? Because we have this whole, we have this set of tabs that are they can be in a bunch of states, like loading, loaded, unloading, unloaded. And so we check to see if we have any tabs where they're loaded and they're not the requested tab, in which case we need to unload these tabs at some point. So we say, yes, these still have work to do. And if we have any that are in the loading state or they're in the unloading state, then there's still work going on. So we update num pending. Then we call update display. Update display in post actions. That's important as well. I feel like we've already done this. This determines whether or not we show the spinner or not, whether or not we switch the tab panels, whether or not we switch the visual tab, visually selected tab. That's what update display does. I'm not going to go through that again. But if you're interested, check it out in episode 40. I'm pretty sure I talked about it there. And if I didn't talk about it in episode 40, let me know in the feedback for this episode, because then I'll go back and I'll explain it. So post actions, we were in post actions still. Update display. If it's possible for update to display to trigger one of our own event handlers, which might cause finish to already have been called. So this is a reentrancy, or a guard against the fact that update display may have somehow destroyed us. Okay, that is fair. If we don't have any work left to do, if we've like done the post actions and we've realized that everything's quieted down, then we finish. And finish, if we look at finish, we'll do a bunch of assertions to make sure that we're in the right state. It will destroy, so it will remove all of the event listeners and clear out all of the suppressing. Like for everything that we've been suppressing, we say don't suppress the display point anymore. And then the browser that was selected, that's finally selected, we're going to set it to the content primary, and that's useful for other reasons. We're going to adjust focus finally, now that the tab switch is completed. Tab we're switching from close before we're able to finalize, in which case from browser doesn't exist. So if there's a from browser, then we'll set it to content targetable, but only if there's a from browser, because there might not be. It may have closed before we finished. Then we fire an event saying that the tab switcher is done. The tab switch is done, and then we're done after that. And that's in post actions, and that is what happens when we request tab. So now we're in this state. Suppose that in post actions we still had work to do. In post actions, let's say we executed and we didn't call finish. Then we still have some pending work going on, which means that we're waiting for either timers to go off, we're waiting for events to bubble up. So we're existing. The async tab switcher is just waiting. So let's take a look at the things that could happen. So the one thing that could happen is we could fire the unload, well, let's say the load timeout. So that's when we've asked for a frame for a tab, and it took too long. I don't remember how long that load timeout is. Let's see, on load timeout. How long do we wait? Tab switch timeout. I think it's like 400 milliseconds. Yeah, it's 400 milliseconds. We wait almost half a second, which is not amazing. But that way we see the spinner less. I don't know which is more infuriating, sluggish tab switching or seeing more spinner. We should probably just try and make both better. So if we see the load timeout, then we say, we log that, and then we do the pre-actions to update all of make sure that the tabs that we need to care about are still around. Then we say that the load timer, we clear it out, we get rid of the loading tab, it's null, and we do the post actions again. And then post actions is going to determine whether or not it's going to call update display. Wait, on load timeout, how does it know whether or not to show the spinner? Update display is going to figure out so if update display was called and the tab state for the tab that we're trying to show, so update display will be called, and we'll know if the state of the requested tab is not loaded, then the tab that we care about is the last visible one. But only if there's a load timer. Okay, so that's how this works. If we timed out, then load timer won't exist, so we will not enter this block. So the tab that we actually do care about is the requested tab, and then we'll see that it's not in the loaded state. This is very convoluted. We'll see that it's not in the loaded state, and then it'll determine that we do need the spinner. So if we need the spinner, and the spinner tab is not to the one that is showing the spinner, then if there's a pre-existing spinner tab, we'll remove the spinning from the old tab, and then we'll set up the spinner on the new tab. Else this spinner displayed, I think, is used to set up the rest of the browser to make sure it's ready to show the spinner. And then we set the spinner tab to be the one that we timed out waiting for. And wait, what is spinner displayed? Oh, spinner displayed might actually just be a measurement. Spinner displayed. Yeah, it's a measurement, and we add a profile marker to help make that occur less. Okay, and that's what happens if you do a load timeout, is we do all of the pre-actions and post-actions work, which will result in the tab that we had requested to show the spinner. Okay, what else could occur? Let's say the layers are ready. So the on layers ready is fired. On layers ready is fired whenever we get Moz layer tree ready. And that is something we listen to the whole window for. And if the browser tab is in the loading state, if we set the state to loading, we request the layer tree ready notification from the frame loader. And that way, we'll know right away when the frame becomes ready. And then we set doc shell is active to true, which will send a message down which tells the content process, okay, now paint this thing. Like, do a paint. And then when the frame tree becomes ready, we'll hear about it using this Moz layer tree ready event. If we're unloading, we set the tab state to unloading, then we tell it, the frame loader, let me know whenever the layer tree has been cleared. And then we set the doc shell as active to false. Okay, so on layer tree ready has been called. And so we say, hey, on layers ready, we log it, and then we get the tab for the browser that said it was ready. We get the tab for that browser, and then we say, okay, now you are loaded. Your frame is ready, you are loaded. So then we call maybe finish tab switch, which will determine whether or not we should fire the tab switched event. So if there's a switch in progress still, if there's a switch in progress and we have the requested tab and the requested tab state is loaded, then we say, okay, we've tab switched, we dispatch that event, we stop the stopwatch for the total switch time. Like, we've done the job of actually doing the switch as soon as the layers are ready. And then we like add profile markers and stuff, and then we say the switch is no longer in progress. So that's good. And we call it maybe finish tab switch because that's called in a couple of different places, which might not mean that the tab switch is done. The tab switch might not be completed yet. Okay. So that's then if the loading tab is the tab, we clear the timeout. So if we were originally, if we had a load timer still on this tab, then we clear the timeout. And then on layers ready, after on layers ready is called, I'm pretty sure we'll do the pre-actions and the post-actions. Every time an event comes up, we'll do the pre-actions, the post-actions. Also, we have this like a reentrancy guard because we can handle an event while we're handling an event. And so if we are handling an event, we set processing to true, and if we somehow re-enter handle event, then we'll defer that event to be handled in the next tick of the event loop. If we delayed processing this event, we might be out of date, in which case we drop the delayed events. Delayed is false. When would we? Oh, we say delayed if the second argument here is true. We might be out of date. We drop the delayed events. Okay, fair enough. So if, for example, we deferred and then the switch had completed, then we just bail out. Do the pre-actions, and then any one of these events, and then the post-actions. So pre-actions had occurred with Moz layer tree ready, and then when we did update display, in the post actions. Where's update display? Update display here. We see whether or not we'll enter this block because there won't be a load timer anymore. And we won't need the tab spinner because we'll be in the loaded state. And if there is a spinner tab, we'll hide the spinner. So we might enter this block. And then if the visible tab is not equal to the show tab, then we'll like do all the work to actually flip the tab box, the tab panels to show the tab. Now its frame is ready. And then we will adjust focus and whatnot. So that's when the layers are ready. And then we have one for on paint. So what's that used for? Moz on paint. That's if we see Moz after paint. When switching, we assume the old tab might still be drawn until a Moz after paint event occurs. Because layout and compositing happen asynchronously, we don't have any other way of knowing when the switch actually takes place. So the Moz after paint is used to like know that the paint, like we have the frame, and then the next Moz after paint should actually show the tab. So on paint. Whoop. Then we will, so we paint the screen. Any tab switches we initiated previously are done. So there's no need to keep the old layers around. So we clear out any maybe visible tabs. And then we finish the tabs, maybe finish the tab switch. Because who knows, that Moz after paint, it might be for something else. We might have painted while we were in the midst of a tab switch. So maybe visible tabs. What's that again? That might be visible. We maintain this set because we can't be sure when a tab is actually drawn. A tab is added to the set when we ask to make it visible. All tabs but the most recently shown tab are removed from the set upon Moz after paint. But the most recently shown. But that's not true. In Moz after paint, that's actually wrong. In Moz after paint, we clear this out. But that's probably okay. What is this? We add when we update display whenever we show a tab. And then if we, in the unload timeout, and we don't have this, and the tab state for the tab is unloading. Okay, that's interesting. So maybe visible tabs is cleared out of all of the things that we might have switched to during the tab switch. Because we don't, I guess, on Moz after paint, we don't know which one is being shown. And then we have this unload timeout. The unload timeout, is fired after we request the tab after 300 milliseconds. We do the pre-actions, and then we check to see if any of the tabs are loaded and not visible. If it's not in there, if it's loaded, it's not visible, and then if the tab's not the last visible tab or the loading tab or the requested tab, then we say, okay, now unload you. We will unload you. Maybe visible tabs has tab. This I wonder about. Maybe visible tabs. Should that maybe, instead of clearing it in Moz after paint, should we put the selected tab back in there? Maybe. Let me, do I have any notes on this? Better know a gecko? Notes dev, better know a gecko. To do. Should the... Oh, I should put a link to this in my meeting notes. Yeah, I already do. So, better know a gecko. Should the Moz after paint handler re-add the selected tab? Okay. So it'll unload all the ones that aren't currently requested. So that's going to request a bunch of, like it's going to set docshell as active false to all of the unselected tabs, and then it's going to wait for the unload Moz layer, layers destroyed event from all of them. And then for each one, if they're not unloaded, and there is and the tab is not the requested tab, then we increase num pending, which started out at 0. So we're still waiting. We're still waiting for them to unload. And if there are more than one, then we queue up the unload timeout again after another delay of 300 milliseconds, and we do the post action. So we're waiting, like we're trying to unload these tabs and waiting for all those events to come up. And those events come up on the on layers cleared. Call when we're done clearing the layers for a tab. We'll set the tab state to unloaded. So there are a couple of other cases here. Called when a tab switches from remote to non-remote. In this case, a Moz layer tree ready notification that we requested may never fire, so we need to simulate it. So if a tab is changed from remote to remote to non-remote, so that will occur if this is not a remote browser. Then we get if the tab is in the loading state, then we pretend that we've got the layer tree fired, like we say on layers ready. And if it's in the unloading state, we say it's been cleared. We just clear it out. So we simulate it on a remoteness change. Okay. So we have done unload timeout on unload timeout, on load timeout, on layers ready, on paint, on layers cleared, on remoteness change. Okay, and that's all of these. We talked about start and finish tab switch, spinner displayed, spinner hidden. Add marker is used to like add a profile marker, and then there's just a bunch of like utility logging down here. And I think that's about it. That's basically how it works. It's this really complex state machine that like exists for an indeterminate amount of time while it waits for tabs to either load or unload, which is very interesting. So that's better know a gecko for the async tab switcher. I hope that was interesting or useful. Let me know when you rate this episode. Again, at the end of this episode and in the agenda, there's a Google Forms link you can use to let me know what you thought of Better Know a Gecko, whether or not that was worth it at all. So we're done Better Know a Gecko. I want to review this last thing, and then I think I'm probably going to call it. We've only got about 12 minutes left in the episode. So I'm going to review this patch that landed in my queue today.
Okie dokie.
And so let me I've got some messages. I want to make sure that nothing important is going on that I need to know about. Sorry, dead air. Okay, none of these are too important. I can defer those for later. So, what do we got here? So, there's a support page. So in bug, Jim says we're going to disable accessibility if it starts up while the browser is running with process per tab running. Oh, disable accessibility in content when we detect E10S is enabled, and disable E10S on startup if accessibility was recently loaded. The Chrome notification will have an accessible door hanger, which will have a Learn More link. This currently points to a non-existent support page. Before we roll this feature out to beta release, this support page will need to be created. This is the... does not have approved content yet, but that's the URL. And we do this thing. What is this? Yeah, this is inside the show e10s accessibility warning, where before we would just show a Learn More URL that points to nowhere, apparently, or points to something that's not internationalized. So here we will point to... I think I want to see if I can find another example of us doing this. DXR... and then like support. There aren't too many cases of us hard coding it into the browser. So I think that's my first comment. There aren't too many cases of us hard coding these URL templates into browser code. And it gets harder to mess with these sorts of things if we happen to get the URL wrong on a release. If we store the value in a pref, it's easier to manipulate the URL after we've shipped the browser. At least I think that's one of the reasons why we store the support URLs there. So would you mind adding this instead to, where do I have it? Somewhere in here. I know we haven't really been doing that in the past with e10s, but that's before we were shipping localized support pages. So I think we should go with we should be consistent. And then, like, what uses it? Suppose we do, let's look for these patterns. What have we got? OS locale. App support base URL. Who uses that? Or is there one under? Like, get add-ons search URL. Learn more, customize mode, learn more link. Okay. So let's see how this is used. Format URL pref. Ah. So there's a helper. That's good. I believe services URL format or format URL pref will do all of the magic here for you. Format URL pref. Is there a documentation? Format URL pref. SURL formatter. What's the... Get service, the formatter. What implements this service? I'll look for the method name instead. Format URL pref. Here we go. Huh, okay, it's not implemented in C. So, here we are, URL formatter and toolkit URL formatter. Heyo. So what are the known, I think these are the known things. I'm gonna get a permalink here. Known interpolations. Okay, so that's it for my review. Boom, booyah shaka. This looks good, but I think we can make use of some of the built-in URL formatter toolkit code to take care of a lot of the boilerplate. See below. Thanks, Jim. Always thank your patch author. Oh, that's it. Okay, you know what? It's 2:27. I think I'm going to call this episode pretty much done. Is there anything else I wanted to do today? I want to tell you again, this would be great if you would rate this episode. Let me know what else I can do to make this show better for you. I also want to take this opportunity to invite you, if you're in the Mozilla community, to create a show yourself. Who knows what it is that you're working on? Maybe you're hacking on Servo. Maybe you're writing the Rust language. Maybe you're doing a bunch of testing. Maybe you're writing documentation. Maybe you're triaging bugs. Maybe you're doing design or wireframes or prototypes. Who knows what you're doing? Maybe you're maybe you're doing support and you're just helping people out on Twitter willy-nilly. It could be anything. I think it would be fascinating to see what people are doing, what people are up to, and what their jobs are like here at Mozilla. What it is that they either are paid to do or what they volunteer to do, and how they do their work. And so it would be great if we could get more shows up on Air Mozilla. If that's something that interests you, the software to do like all of this, like me in the corner and showing my desktop, it's open source. You can get yourself a webcam and like a headset, and that's really all you need to do. Richard and myself, if you're in IRC, if you go into the #live hacking channel, come talk to myself, M. Conley, or Richard in live hacking. We can give you all the information you need to get yourself a show going, and that would be fantastic if we would just pack Air Mozilla with some really great content. And I think it's useful for people. So that's a thing. You can reach out to me on #live hacking on IRC. You can rate this episode. You can talk to me on Twitter. I'm at Mike_Conley on Twitter. You can check out my blog, and if you dig deep enough, you can probably find my email address there. Probably don't call me, but yeah, email or IRC is probably better, or Twitter. Any of those will do. And I think I'm going to call this episode done. Thank you so much for watching episode 42 of The Joy of Coding. I hope it was a pleasurable experience. I'm going to go back here. I hope I hope it was a great episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week for episode 43. Ta-ta! Oh, come on.
The joy of coding.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.